Most people make the mistake of thinking that if they talk about their problems long enough, somehow the world will care and things will magically get better. But here's the truth. The majority of people don't care about your problems, and a few might even be glad you have them. That's the reality of life. Every time you pour out your struggles to the wrong audience, you give away your strength. You invite pity instead of respect, and pity is never going to move your life forward. People admire strength, not complaints. They listen to solutions, not sob stories. When you constantly talk about what's wrong, you train your mind to stay in survival mode. You reinforce the very pain you're trying to escape. But when you discipline yourself to keep moving, to find answers, to stand tall, even when you feel like breaking, you build an aura of resilience that people cannot ignore. It doesn't mean you pretend nothing is wrong. It means you choose wisely who gets access to your vulnerabilities. Share your struggles only with those who can help you, not with those who will use them against you. Don't mistake an audience for an ally. Strong people handle their storms in silence. They fight their battles quietly and let their victories make the noise. When you stop telling the world your problems, you stop giving the world power over your emotions. You take control back. So the next time you feel the urge to complain, stop. Ask yourself, is this person going to help me solve it? Or am I just looking for sympathy? Because sympathy won't change your life. Action will. Remember, silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. Protect your mind, protect your emotions, and protect your story. Because when you rise above your problems without broadcasting them, you don't just survive, you earn respect. Your strength is not in telling people your problems. Your strength is in showing them how you overcame them. All right, here's the expanded first key point from your speech. Don it, tell people your problems in a motivational, tough love style. I'll keep it direct, powerful, and flowing. No subtitle or conclusion, just the body. Most people live under the illusion that the world revolves around them, that others are genuinely invested in their problems, struggles, and setbacks. But reality doesn't work like that. People are consumed by their own lives, their own worries, their own fears. They are too busy fighting their own battles to carry the weight of yours. When you understand this, it shifts the way you see the world. You stop expecting sympathy and start taking responsibility. Think about it. When was the last time someone spent hours thinking about your problems? The truth is, almost never. People may listen politely, nod their heads, even offer a few comforting words, but the moment they walk away, their mind is back to their own lives. And that's not because they're cruel. It's because human beings are wired for survival. Everyone is carrying a load. Everyone has something they're battling. And so when you unload your problems on them, you're just adding weight to the burden they already carry. That's why most people simply don't care. Now here's the tougher truth. Some people actually take pleasure in knowing you're struggling. They may not admit it, but inside, they feel a sense of superiority when they see you down. They compare their life to yours and feel a little better about themselves. Misery loves company. And when you open up your pain to the wrong audience, you give them fuel to feel stronger while you weaken yourself. This is why telling your problems to just anyone is dangerous. You don't know who is secretly rooting for your downfall. It's not just about indifference or malice. It's also about human behavior. People are naturally curious, and your problems can become gossip material. You may think you're sharing in confidence, but once your words leave your mouth, you lose control of them. They get twisted, exaggerated, and passed along until your private struggle becomes public entertainment. Suddenly, instead of finding support, you've handed over your pain as free content for someone else's amusement. This is why discipline is crucial. Strong people understand that not everyone deserves access to their inner world. They don't seek validation by broadcasting their problems. They don't need the comfort of pity. They build their lives on the solid ground of resilience, not on the shaky foundation of sympathy. And that begins with accepting that most people simply don't care enough to make a difference. When you stop expecting others to care, something powerful happens. You reclaim your energy. You no longer waste time waiting for comfort or understanding. You no longer measure your worth by how much attention you get when you're in pain. Instead, you turn inward. You focus on yourself, your strategy, your growth. You become self-reliant. That doesn't mean you isolate yourself or refuse help when it's truly needed. It means you become selective. You only share with people who can offer real solutions, not just nods of sympathy. You filter your circle to include those who want to see you win, not those who clap when you lose. Because the harsh reality is this: The wrong people are not just uninterested in your problems, they're entertained by them. There's also a psychological trap in constantly telling others about your problems. The more you repeat them, the more power they gain over you. You relive the pain, you reinforce the struggle, you keep the wound open. And when you do this around people who don't care or, worse, take pleasure in your pain, you weaken yourself twice. You feed your problem and you feed their amusement. That's a losing game. When you carry yourself as if no one owes you their care, you rise above the noise. You stand out. You stop handing out your pain like free samples, and instead, you guard your energy. You stop looking for pity and start demanding respect, because respect is earned, not by telling people your struggles, but by showing them your strength. This is why the strongest people you know often appear silent about their battles. It's not that they don't have problems. It's that they've learned most people can't, won't, or shouldn't carry them. They understand that when you broadcast your weaknesses, you open yourself up to judgment, gossip, and exploitation. But when you handle your struggles quietly, you project an image of control, even when life is chaotic behind the scenes. That image commands respect, and respect brings influence. So the next time you feel like spilling your problems to the world, stop and ask yourself, who really cares? Who will benefit if I share this? Am I strengthening myself by speaking, or am I handing over my power to people who don't deserve it? The truth is, silence in the face of struggle isn't weakness. It's strength disguised. And when you learn that most people don't care and some are glad you suffer, you stop looking for comfort where none exists. You stop feeding others with your pain, and instead, you start feeding yourself with resilience. When you complain, you don't just express frustration, you hand over your power. You confirm to yourself and to everyone listening that you are not in control. Complaining is like leaking energy drop by drop until eventually you've drained yourself and have nothing left to fight with. Every time you complain, you condition your mind to see yourself as a victim rather than a problem solver. And victims never win. Think about the people you admire the most. Do they sit around complaining about how hard life is, or do they find a way to push through despite the obstacles? The truth is, no one respects a complainer. People may tolerate it for a while, but eventually they start to see it as weakness. Complaining doesn't attract solutions, it only attracts pity, annoyance, or avoidance. People pull away from complainers because negativity is heavy to carry. And even if they don't say it out loud, they begin to lose respect for you. Complaining is also deceptive because it gives you the illusion that you're doing something. You think that by talking about the problem, you're processing it, working through it, but what you're really doing is replaying the same story over and over, cementing it deeper into your identity. Instead of moving closer to a solution, you build a stronger bond with the problem. You make it bigger in your mind, louder in your emotions, and harder to overcome. Complaining multiplies problems. It never reduces them. The danger is that complaining feels easy. It requires no effort, no courage, no risk. It's comfortable to sit back and vent. It's comfortable to blame the boss, the partner, the government, or even fate. But comfort is a trap. Every minute you spend complaining is a minute you could have spent planning, working, or solving. Complaining feels like movement, but in reality, it's paralysis disguised as conversation. When you complain to people, you put yourself in a weaker position. You present yourself as someone who can't handle life. And the more you do it, the more others will start to define you by it. They'll see you not as someone strong or capable, but as someone always in need of help, sympathy, or rescue. That's not the image you want to build if you're aiming to be respected. People follow strength, not weakness. They are inspired by resilience, not excuses. The worst part about complaining is what it does internally. When you complain, your brain releases stress hormones like cortisol. You literally poison your own body with your words. You train your nervous system to expect problems instead of solutions. You rehearse your pain until it becomes second nature. And then you wonder why nothing changes. Complaining is not harmless. It programs your mind to stay stuck. On the other hand, when you resist the urge to complain, you send yourself a very different message. You tell yourself, I'm in control. I can handle this. You might still feel frustrated, but you keep your energy focused on moving forward. You teach your brain to look for answers instead of rehearsing obstacles. That simple act of self-discipline strengthens you. It sharpens your mind and hardens your resilience. There's another truth people don't like to admit. Complaining pushes others away. No one wants to be around constant negativity. People may comfort you once or twice, but if all you ever bring to the table is your problems, eventually they'll stop inviting you to sit with them. You become known as the one who drains the room instead of the one who lifts it. And once you've been labeled like that, it's hard to earn respect back. Complaining weakens not just how others see you, but how you see yourself. The more you do it, the more you begin to believe you can't handle life without outside validation. You start to rely on sympathy as fuel instead of discipline. But sympathy is a cheap fuel. It burns fast and leaves you empty. Discipline, silence, and action are the fuels that build lasting strength. The truth is, everyone has problems. You're not the only one carrying burdens. But what separates strong people from weak people is how they deal with them. The weak complain. The strong act. The weak spread their pain to anyone who will listen. The strong use their pain as fuel to rise. Life will always test you. You don't get to choose your storms, but you do get to choose how you carry yourself through them. Complaining is the choice that makes you smaller. Action is the choice that makes you stronger. When you stop complaining, you take control back from the problem. You declare that it doesn't own you, you own it. You cut off the cycle of negativity and force yourself to focus on solutions. You separate yourself from the masses because the majority of people live in complaint mode. They blame, they vent, they wait for others to fix things. But the few who discipline themselves to rise above complaining, those are the ones who stand out, who command respect, who build unshakable strength. So every time you feel the urge to open your mouth and complain, remember this: you're about to give away your power. You're about to weaken yourself in front of others and in front of your own mind. Ask yourself instead, what action can I take right now? What lesson can I learn? How can I rise above this without broadcasting it to the world? Because the moment you stop complaining, you stop being a victim and you start being unstoppable. The more you talk about your problems, the bigger they become. Words have power, and when you constantly repeat your struggles, you give them life. You feed them energy. You make them stronger. Every time you tell someone about how hard things are, every time you replay the story of your pain, you're adding weight to the very burden you're trying to escape. Instead of shrinking your challenges, you're multiplying them. When you talk too much about what's wrong, you shift your focus away from solutions and fix your attention firmly on the problem. And what you focus on grows. If you spend all your time describing your challenges, you train your mind to obsess over them. Soon, they begin to occupy every corner of your thoughts. What could have been a small obstacle becomes a massive wall, built brick by your own words. Talking may feel like release, but it is deceptive. It tricks you into thinking you're processing when in reality you're reinforcing. You're building an identity around your struggles. You're no longer a person facing a challenge. You become the challenge itself. I'm broke. I'm unlucky. I'm stuck. The problem becomes part of your identity, and that is dangerous because once your problem becomes who you are, you'll stop believing you can ever escape it. On the other hand, when you shift your energy from talking to acting, something powerful happens. Action shrinks problems. Action reduces the noise. Action turns pain into progress. It doesn't mean the obstacle vanishes overnight, but it does mean it loses control over you. A problem you act on immediately feels smaller because you are no longer powerless. You are moving. Even the smallest step forward creates momentum, and momentum is stronger than any problem. Consider this: if your car breaks down and you stand there complaining about it for hours, the car isn't going to fix itself. The problem remains exactly the same, and you've only wasted precious time. But if you pick up the phone, call a mechanic, or start looking under the hood, you're already closer to a solution. The problem may still exist, but your action has begun to shrink it. You've turned helplessness into progress. This is true for every area of life: finances, relationships, health, career. Problems grow louder when you talk about them. They grow quieter when you act on them. People who talk endlessly about their struggles without taking action end up trapped in cycles of negativity. Their problems become their stories, their identity, their excuse for staying stuck. Meanwhile, people who act, even imperfectly, break free, because every action is a step out of the prison of the problem. There's also a psychological benefit to choosing action over talk. When you act, your brain shifts into solution mode. It starts looking for possibilities instead of excuses. You activate creativity, discipline, and resourcefulness. But when you only talk, you lock yourself into problem mode. You train your brain to recycle the same frustration over and over again, which not only keeps you stuck, but also drains your energy. Talking also creates a dangerous cycle of dependency. You start to rely on other people's sympathy instead of your own strength. You crave the comfort of being listened to instead of the empowerment of taking control. But the truth is, sympathy never solved a problem. It may feel good for a moment, but once the conversation ends, the problem is still there, staring you in the face. Only action moves you forward. Another danger of talking too much about your struggles is that it invites the wrong kind of attention. People start to see you as someone defined by your issues. They may pity you, but they won't respect you. They may listen, but they won't admire you. Respect is reserved for people who face their storms, not for people who broadcast them. The world rewards problem solvers, not problem sharers. When you choose action, you also separate yourself from the majority. Most people love to talk about their problems. They gather in groups and trade complaints, each one trying to outdo the other. It becomes a competition of who has it worse. And while they're stuck in that cycle, their problems keep multiplying, but the rare few who take action break free. They don't have time to complain because they're too busy building solutions, and because of that, they rise above the crowd. Even small actions can create massive change. Maybe you can't solve everything at once, but you can take one step, send one email, read one book, make one decision. Every step shrinks the problem because it shifts the balance of power. The problem no longer controls you, you're controlling the problem. And the more steps you take, the smaller the challenge feels. Soon, what once felt like an impossible mountain becomes a climbable hill. The truth is simple. Problems multiply when you talk because you give them oxygen. They shrink when you act because you suffocate them. You starve them of energy and feed your own strength instead. That's why the strongest people don't waste time talking about their struggles. They use that energy to move forward, to adapt, to push through. They know that every second spent talking could have been spent solving, and that discipline is what sets them apart. One of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking everyone deserves access to their private struggles. They believe that because someone listens, that person cares. They believe that because someone nods their head, they're trustworthy. But the truth is, not everyone in your circle is on your side. Some people are only there to gather information, to watch, to judge, or even to use your vulnerability against you. That's why you must be intentional about who you share your problems with. Not all ears are safe. Some people are motivated by curiosity, not compassion. They don't want to help. They want to know. They collect your problems like gossip, storing them for later. They might retell your story in a twisted way, exaggerating it or using it to make themselves look better. What you shared in a moment of weakness becomes their material for entertainment. And once your private pain leaves your lips, you have no control over how far it travels. Other people listen because your struggles make them feel stronger. They may never say it, but inside, they enjoy knowing you're beneath them, that you're struggling while they appear stable. Instead of lifting you up, they silently take pride in the fact that you're down. This is why choosing your circle carefully is not just smart, it's survival. The wrong people can take your vulnerability and turn it into a weapon. Even good-hearted people aren't always the right people to share with. Sometimes they can't help because they don't have the wisdom, strength, or resources to guide you. So instead of lifting you, they leave you stuck in the same place. You walk away lighter for a moment because you vented, but you're no closer to a solution. And if you keep repeating that cycle, you'll stay trapped in your problems while mistaking listening ears for helping hands. The truth is, not everyone deserves access to the deepest parts of you. Your problems are not public property. They are not meant for everyone to handle, comment on, or consume. Your struggles are sacred, and you need to protect them the way you'd protect your most valuable possessions. Just as you wouldn't leave your money or your keys lying around for anyone to take, you shouldn't hand out your vulnerabilities freely. Strong people understand this. They are selective about their circle. They know exactly who they can trust, and they don't mistake acquaintances for allies. They don't confuse an audience for a support system. And they certainly don't assume that just because someone smiles in their face, they're on their side. They build a small, strong inner circle of people they can count on, people who not only listen, but guide, challenge, and encourage them to rise above. Choosing your circle wisely means being brutally honest about who adds to your life and who drains it, who celebrates your victories and who secretly resents them, who helps you when you fall, and who steps back to watch. Sometimes the hardest truth is realizing that not everyone in your life is for you. And if you want to protect your peace and your progress, you have to learn to close the door on certain people. This doesn't mean living in paranoia. It means living with discernment. It means understanding that your energy, your mind, and your emotions are too valuable to be handed out carelessly. You have to guard your inner world the same way a warrior guards his armor. Because once your armor is pierced, it's hard to fight. And when you tell your problems to the wrong person, you hand them the spear to wound you further. Instead of giving everyone access, focus on finding those rare people who genuinely want to see you win. People who will give you truth, not just sympathy. People who won't spread your business but will hold it close. People who aren't intimidated by your strength or entertained by your weakness. Those people are rare, but once you find them, they're worth more than 100 shallow connections. This is why you should never confuse quantity with quality when it comes to relationships. You don't need a big circle. You need a strong one. 10 listeners can't compare to one trusted confidant. 100 followers can't replace one true mentor. Protecting your problems means protecting your progress, and that starts by cutting off access to the wrong people. When you master this, something shifts inside you. You stop seeking validation from the crowd and start valuing the counsel of the wise. You stop wasting your energy on shallow conversations and start investing it in meaningful ones. You stop being reckless with your emotions and start becoming strategic. And that discipline not only protects you, it empowers you. Your circle shapes your mindset, your decisions, and your future. If you surround yourself with people who only feed your complaints, you'll stay stuck in complaint mode. If you surround yourself with people who challenge you to act, you'll grow stronger every day. The choice is yours. Your problems deserve to be handled with care, not tossed around like small talk. Choose your circle wisely because who you share with determines whether you stay weak or grow strong. There is a certain power in silence that most people will never understand. When life throws its hardest battles at you, the natural instinct is to cry out, to tell the world how unfair things are, to seek comfort in the noise of others' attention. But the truth is, silence builds strength. Silence is not weakness, it is control. It is discipline. It is the mark of someone who refuses to let life define them by their struggles. When you choose silence in the face of adversity, you send a message to yourself and to the world that you are in control, even if chaos is raging inside you. You show that you don't need pity to survive, you don't need validation to stand, and you don't need applause to keep moving. Silence strips away the weakness of dependency and replaces it with the power of resilience. It tells the world, I may be struggling, but I am not broken. I will fight this battle my way. People respect what they don't understand, and silence creates mystery. When others see you facing challenges but hear nothing from you, they begin to wonder, how are they handling it? How are they still standing? That wonder turns into respect because people admire strength they cannot explain. While others broadcast every setback, you choose to endure quietly, and that difference makes you stand out. It separates you from the masses who need attention just to survive. Silence also protects you. The moment you open your mouth and tell the wrong person about your problems, you give them something to hold over you. You expose a weakness they can use. But when you stay silent, no one knows what you're carrying. No one knows where to attack. You remain unshaken in their eyes, untouchable in their perception. That image of strength becomes a shield, and it protects you in ways words never can. But silence isn't just about perception. It's about personal growth. When you stay silent, you create space for reflection. You hear your own thoughts more clearly. You learn to process pain without constantly reliving it in conversations. You gain clarity about what matters and what doesn't. Silence allows you to focus your energy on solutions rather than on seeking sympathy. It pushes you inward. And that's where real strength is built, in the quiet battles no one sees. There is also discipline in silence. It takes control to keep your emotions in check, to resist the urge to vent every frustration, and that control is what shapes character. Anyone can talk about how hard things are. Anyone can gather attention by shouting about their pain. But very few can master the art of holding their ground quietly. That restraint builds a kind of toughness that no amount of talking ever will. The world doesn't admire noise, it admires results. When you rise after a storm without ever broadcasting your struggle, people notice. They may never know the full weight of what you carried, but they will see the strength in how you carry yourself. They will respect your composure, your ability to keep moving without demanding attention. That respect is worth more than any temporary comfort you might get from complaining. Silence also gives you an edge. While others waste time sharing their pain and waiting for sympathy, you use that same time to strategize, to act, to move forward. You keep your focus sharp, your energy intact, your dignity preserved. By the time others realize you were struggling, you've already overcome. And the only thing they can do is admire the way you handled it. The strongest people you know, leaders, warriors, survivors, don't talk about every battle they fight. They endure in silence and let their victory speak for them. They understand that silence carries a weight words never can. It commands respect. It builds an aura of unshakable strength, and it teaches you to rely on yourself instead of on the fragile comfort of sympathy. The truth is, silence is strategy. It is the choice to protect your energy, to preserve your dignity, and to project strength even when you feel weak inside. It is the difference between being remembered as someone who complained and being remembered as someone who conquered. And when you master it, you become untouchable, not because you never face problems, but because you refuse to let your problems define you in the eyes of others. The world doesn't remember the people who complained. It remembers the people who overcame. You could tell everyone about how hard life is, how unfair your circumstances are, how heavy your burdens feel, but in the end, those words fade. What lasts, what people truly respect, is proof. It's results. It's the story of how you rose, not how you suffered. Success has a voice of its own, and it is louder than any complaint you could ever make. You don't need to convince people of your strength when they can see the evidence in your achievements. You don't need to explain your struggles when your results are undeniable. Success is the only explanation you'll ever need, and it speaks a language everyone understands: action, resilience, and victory. When you constantly tell people your problems, you run the risk of being defined by them. People start to see you as the one who's always struggling, the one who always has an issue, the one who never gets it together. That reputation sticks, and once it does, it's hard to shake off. But when you discipline yourself to keep moving forward and let your success speak, you rewrite your identity. You go from being the one who suffers to being the one who triumphs. And that transformation commands respect. Your struggles might explain where you've been, but your success shows where you're going. And people are far more interested in the person who rises than in the person who sits still. Nobody admires a constant victim. People admire the fighter who keeps going, the one who refuses to be broken, the one who proves that setbacks don't have the final word. That's the power of letting your results speak for you. There's also a deeper truth. Your success doesn't just inspire others, it silences doubters. The same people who may secretly enjoy your struggles, who gossip about your problems, who write you off as finished. Those are the people who fall silent when they see you win. Nothing shuts down negativity like undeniable progress. You don't need to argue with critics or defend yourself to skeptics. Just keep building, just keep moving, because success is the ultimate response, and it leaves no room for debate. And remember, success doesn't always mean millions of dollars or worldwide fame. It can mean small victories stacked one after another until your life looks completely different. It can mean breaking habits, building discipline, raising your standards. It can mean creating peace where there used to be chaos, or strength where there used to be weakness. Every victory, no matter how small, speaks louder than 1,000 words about your struggles. This is why action matters more than talking. Complaints keep you stuck in the past, but success pulls you into the future. Complaints tie you to the identity of weakness, but success redefines you as someone who cannot be broken. Complaints make people avoid you, but success draws them to you. The choice is simple. You can be known for your excuses, or you can be known for your results. Letting your success speak also builds credibility. People trust those who show results, not those who talk about problems. If you're always telling people how tough life is, but never showing progress, your words lose weight. But when your actions produce results, your words gain power. People start listening, not because you told them your problems, but because you proved you could overcome them. Success earns you influence in a way that struggles never will. And here's the most powerful part. When you let your success speak, you inspire others more than any complaint ever could. No one is motivated by hearing how bad your life is, but they are inspired when they see how you rose above it. They see your victory and think, if they can do it, maybe I can too. Your success becomes a source of hope for others, and that's far more valuable than any sympathy you could have gained by complaining. Every great story in history, every figure we admire, has this in common. They are remembered for how they overcame, not for how much they complained. Their success speaks across generations, while their struggles are just the backdrop. You are writing your own story right now, and the question is, will people remember the noise of your complaints or the proof of your victories? You don't need to broadcast your pain to be understood. You don't need to make people feel sorry for you to be respected. All you need is the discipline to turn your struggles into fuel, to take consistent action, and to keep building until your success speaks for itself. Because at the end of the day, people don't care about what you say you're going to do. They care about what you've done, and nothing speaks louder than a life transformed by resilience, discipline, and strength. Life will never run out of challenges, struggles, setbacks, disappointments. They come for all of us. But what separates the strong from the weak, the respected from the forgotten, is how we choose to handle them. You've heard the truth. Most people don't care about your problems, and some even hope you fail. Complaining only weakens you, magnifies your pain, and strips away your respect. Talking about your struggles multiplies them, while action shrinks them. That is why you must protect your energy, choose your circle wisely, and understand that silence is not weakness, it is strategy. At the end of the day, your life won't be measured by how much you suffered, or how many people you told about your suffering. It will be measured by what you did despite the pain. People don't remember the noise of your complaints, they remember the proof of your victories. Your silence builds respect, and your success tells the world everything it needs to know about your strength. So stop feeding your problems with words and start starving them with action. Guard your heart, your mind, and your story. Refuse to let the wrong people feed on your vulnerability. Build quietly, rise consistently, and when the time is right, let your results do the talking. Because in the end, strength is not about telling people your problems. It's about showing them how you overcame.